Hi people, my name is Bakir as always and as usual. I'm gonna do another well-known person's chart, a hypothetically speaking famous person's chart, and as you can tell in the top left corner or the upper left corner, it is going to be Michael Jordan. Most people are familiar with Michael Jordan. He was a famous basketball player back in especially the 90s. Okay, he was known as he has a famous shoe brand, etc. Apparel overall called Jordan. Again, most people, especially people within my age category, people that grew up around the 90s, they know who Michael Jordan is. Michael Jordan is a basketball legend. He is, at the very least, one of the greatest NBA players of all time. So yeah, you can find his wiki entry in the description of this video as usual. So let's dive right in. Michael Jordan, it begins with him having Mars in Leo going retrograde in the first house. I'm going to treat the North and the South node later on. Yeah, Mars is in Leo going retrograde again in the first house. That stands for the fact that he had a strong, very strong interest in sports ever since he was a child, essentially, in the early part of his life, around teenage years, you name it, especially. It began around then. And of course, it's afflicted because it's going retrograde, not good. But right off the bat, I can say that that retrograde is almost nullified due to beneficial factors. Because initially, the retrograde would indicate very bad news. Okay, it would indicate either a complete lack of sports or a lack of sports, but there being severe issues in terms of actually accomplishing anything, or due to personal life circumstances having to stop with the sports, you name it. Um, it's conjunct the second house, also in Leo, which stands for a good deal of income being garnered, or a good deal of motivation being focused on attaining material wealth with this ability or with this love for sports, this drive for sports. Mars has a grand trine with the moon and midheaven, that giant triangle that you're seeing here, because Mars is trine both the moon, so positively aspected, and the moon as well as Mars are also again positively aspected trine midheaven, and all of them are connected to one another, forming a grand trine. This grand positive, this very positive astrological aspect, essentially coupled with the fact that Mars is in the strongest house it can be in, the house of Aries, the house it rules over, pretty much nullifies this retrograde. Then Mars, generally speaking, does okay in Leo. It's not, definitely not weak, but it's also not super strong. Let's just say it's moderately strong in Leo in this specific situation, and not to mention, like I said again, conjunct the second house also in Leo. Um, this again, the trine with the moon and the moon being in Sagittarius in the fifth house, the house of Leo, indicates an abundance of interest and activity in sports on a day-to-day basis. And the trine with midheaven for both Mars and the moon stand for a vigorous, especially the fact that it's a strong trine because it's Mars, and Mars rules Aries and midheaven is in Aries, or the midheaven is in Aries, stands for a tremendously strong drive towards being ambitious and accomplishing one's goals and successes, you name it. The moon is neutral in these fire signs, so yeah, the Mars is the main primary driving factor here with the strongest influence. And of course, look at that, the pot of fortune is there. While I'm at it, the pot of fortune is in Taurus in the 10th house, which stands for a slow but steady and fixated and or stable drive towards accomplishing one's ambitions. Again, even the pot of fortune lays emphasis on the fact that there is a strong interest in becoming wealthy and being well off financially with this ambition or with these ambitions. So that covers Mars, the moon, and the pot of fortune already. Now, next up, you have Uranus and Pluto, both weak, because Uranus is in a weak sign, Virgo, and it's in a weak house, the house of Taurus, going retrograde. This stands for the fact that there may be sudden losses in finances, sudden financial misfortune, and also sudden lapses in health complications. Pluto says the same thing but in a different way. Pluto is in the house of Gemini, the third house, and it's going retrograde. Pluto is good in Virgo in general, but it's going retrograde, which stands for uh, a metaphorically or hypothetically speaking debilitating disease that will cause problems in day-to-day life and operating at full capacity, to put it that way. Um, let me see. Um, yeah, Lilith is in the black moon is in Libra in the fourth house, which stands for a hidden ability to, or a hidden desire, a hidden ability and a desire to want a peaceful domestic life. And Neptune is in Scorpio, going retrograde in the fifth house, stands for a good deal of natural clairvoyant capabilities, but misuse of it in a specific context, honestly. I already treated the moon. You have Venus in Capricorn in the sixth house, which stands for being ambitious, but ambition essentially making him cold and ruthless and relentless. And the fact that Venus is in Virgo's house, not functioning well at all. Venus is very weak here, both zodiacally, so both in the zodiac sign that it's in, as well as in the house that it's in, the house of Virgo. Venus is generally speaking good in water signs and it's weak in earth signs, with the exception obviously of one of the zodiac signs it rules over, which is Taurus. Yeah, in this context, it simply stands for the fact that Michael Jordan was all about work, 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 work. He was a workaholic, and work was his career, and vice versa, primarily or first and foremost. And yeah, he's just um, it simply caused him to come off as cold and emotionless, generally speaking, cold, uncaring. It just goes on. Mercury is in Aquarius in the seventh house, but Mercury is also negatively aspected Mars. Mars, better said, is negatively aspected Mercury. It's opposed, as well as the fact that it's opposed Saturn, which is also at its strongest in Aquarius. This simply stands for the fact that Michael Jordan's, while I'm discussing both Mercury and and Saturn, both Mercury and Saturn say the same thing or very similar things, that Michael Jordan's drive towards his career-related ambitions, again relating to sports, it essentially caused a rift between him and the people he loves. So think of loved ones, friends, family, etc. Mercury is good in Aquarius in general. It's good in air signs in general, and it's weak in fire signs. Aquarius an air sign. A good mentality towards the public and cultivating close relationships with people. But like I said, the drive essentially caused like a hindrance regarding that. And in regards to Saturn, Saturn being at its strongest in Aquarius, in the eighth house stands for a good tendency towards managing finances in the terms of owning a business. That's also what the Sun says, or owning multiple businesses, or anything that you can see in that regard. Also in terms of dealing with his own inheritance, etc., paying his taxes, you name it. But the opposition with Mars stands for the fact that, again, the drive towards, it simply stands for the fact that his drive towards his career, his sports career or sporting career, caused problems with that, as well as the fact that there is a tendency for misfortune in this area. The same thing that Uranus says, essentially suddenly losing money or getting involved in litigation-based affairs, getting sued for some kind of financial issue, issues, for example, with not paying taxes on time or mismanagement thereof, you name it. Yeah, the Sun also says that, okay? The Sun is there in the 8th house in Aquarius. It stands for good public relations, good PR abilities overall, and overall good public relations, but the Sun is weak in air signs, and that includes Aquarius. Again, it stands for issues relating to all of these. That's also why the Sun is opposed. Let me see, hold on. Let me see if the Sun is opposed. Yeah, the Sun is opposed Uranus. The Sun is opposed Uranus, stands for, like I said, sudden misfortunes in the way of financial loss or financial losses. We're going to skip Chiron as well. Jupiter is at its strongest. Jupiter is in a zodiac sign it rules over, as well as in a house it rules over, Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, and Jupiter is zodiacally speaking in Pisces, and it is in the house of Sagittarius. So Jupiter is at its absolute strongest here. It stands for, like I said, good diplomatic ability, good memory in terms of dealing with matters behind the scenes, and it just goes on. Okay, the overall just a good amount of good fortune and and successes in life, specifically in the aforementioned. Jupiter is also positively aspected. It's trine thingy. It's trine the ascendant, which is in Cancer, and it's also trine Neptune. Uh, Almost a grand trine. It's off by 1 degree. For all intents and purposes, it might as well be a grand trine. Yeah, so a good amount of good fortune and successes that led to successes in life. Like I said, so especially in the relation to, for example, foreign connections and a good amount of success internationally as well as domestically. Just overall good success, a good level of success. Jupiter is negatively aspected the 12th house though. It's in Gemini, and it's square the 12th house off by two. I mean, it's thinking off by 2 degrees on being a perfect square. Which stands for difficulties in day-to-day activities behind the scenes. Uh, Doing things in private and in secret, it just goes on. And I already discussed the power of fortune, and that's pretty much it. The midheaven is ruled by Aries, which stands for a strong drive towards ambition, like I already stated earlier, and the ascendant is in Cancer. Mercury is also opposed the ascendant, which stands for difficulties in managing and handling domestic life uh, compared or opposed to his career life as well as life in dealing with the public. That's also why Lilith, unsurprisingly, is here. A desire, essentially, a hidden desire, and a tendency towards wanting a peaceful home life. Uh, Lilith is square. Lilith is positively aspected. It's trine the sun, and it is. Let me see. Lilith is square Mercury. Uh-huh. It is trine the thingy house, the 12th house. And yeah, it's also square the ascendant. Yeah, just like I said. Now, the north and south node. The north node says the same thing, that Jordan should have focused more on cultivating a balance between home and between personal and professional life and home life overall, and his life, his career-based life, so work. And the south nodes, they're not going retrograde, they're both going in direct motion. The south node in Capricorn stands for the fact that he was already, his ability for focusing so much on his career to the point where he alienated or it caused a rift between um, friends, between dad and friends and family was already, that ability of his is already in excess, or it's already just plain excess. And let me see for the rest. Yeah, that's about it essentially. So his career-based successes are purely due to Mars being so ridiculously strong. Grand trine in a house it rules over, Jupiter at its strongest as well, the power of fortune being here, the cold and calculative ability, the workaholic mentality, it just goes on. Um, the negative traits essentially are health complications and health related issues, and a tendency towards losing money. Okay, let's just say unwise financial investments as well as the other aforementioned matters regarding this subject matter. And his career essentially, not going along well with his overall life, his contacts with people, his friends, loved ones, you name it. All of that stuff cause problems and or issues. Um, Let me see. Last but not least, what I can say, the moon in Sagittarius in the fifth house indicates a potential love for children as well as a desire to wanting to have a lot of children or having had a lot of children, and or coming from a family where coming from a large family, so with a lot of siblings, for example, and overall family members. One of the two or both or a combination thereof. So that is all, guys. Until next time, bye.